Konami have experienced a renaissance of sorts in recent years, having re-entered the gaming scene and resurrected many of their classic franchises through collections and remasters. And today I want to talk about one of my favourite Konami franchises and one that I hope they revive in the future, and that is Vandal Hearts, a tactical RPG series that released on the PlayStation 1. This is not a review, nor is it a retrospective. I'm not going to be discussing gameplay or the battle system or anything like that. The majority of my subscribers are big Suikoden fans, and many of you may never have heard of or played Vandal Hearts before. So I'd like to introduce you to Vandal Hearts by giving you spoiler-free explanations of the game's stories and discussing the themes and similarities between the two series, to explain to you why, as a fan of Suikoden, you'll love Vandal Hearts, and why you should be asking Konami to release a Vandal Hearts collection or remaster. Vandal Hearts was in many ways the Suikoden of tactical RPGs. The two series shared many similarities in that the games were small in scale as they focused on the internal political problems within nations, while exploring themes of friendship, loyalty and betrayal as you navigated your way through the political turmoil. To start with a little backstory for Vandal Hearts 1. Vandal Hearts 1 took place on the northern continent of Sostigaria in the newly established Republic of Ishtaria. The land had previously been ruled by the Asha dynasty for over 1,000 years. The royal family initially ruled justly, but over time their reign became oppressive and corruption spread throughout the land. As the people continued to suffer and struggle in poverty under the corrupt and oppressive regime, small rebellious factions began to spring up across the nation to oppose the monarchy. A man known as Aris the Sage united all of the anti-royal factions throughout the nation, forming the Liberation Army and rising up in open rebellion against the monarchy. Under his leadership, the Liberation Army would defeat the Royal Army and burn the Imperial Palace to the ground. With the monarchy overthrown, the Liberation Army established the Republic of Ishtaria. The leaders of the Liberation Army would all assume leadership position within the newly founded Republic of Ishtaria, all except for Aris the Sage, who mysteriously disappeared and was never seen again after defeating the Asha dynasty. This is all sounding familiar, right? It's giving you Scarlet Moon Empire vs Liberation Army vibes from Suikoden 1. Except that's only the build-up to the game's story. Vandal Hearts is much darker and more mature in its themes than Suikoden. Vandal Hearts doesn't shy away from showing you the horrors and realities of war, nor does it shy away from showing you the long-lasting suffering that it causes. And unlike in Suikoden, where after a war is won, the nations seem to make quick recoveries and you don't really see or feel the effects of the war, Vandal Hearts tells you, hey, you might have beaten the bad guys and won the war, but tens of thousands of people are now dead. There are countless orphans, towns and cities have been burned to the ground, fields have been trampled, bandits plague the countryside and we don't have the manpower to deal with it. The nation is suffering, there are tough times ahead and it's a long road to recovery. Vandal Hearts shows you how brutal war can be and how long-lasting and far-reaching its effects can be. Now fast forward 15 years to when the game begins. The newly formed Republic of Ishtaria is still feeling the effects of the rebellion, and it's now rotting from within as many of the nation's officials, the former leaders of the Liberation Army, are even more corrupt than the Asha dynasty they overthrew. The Crimson Guard, under the command of the Defense Ministry, ruthlessly suppress any form of dissent. Bandits and pirates plague the nation, taxes are the highest they've ever been, the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, and the people are suffering more now than ever before as the ruling elite treat everyone as mere pawns in their thirst for power. The game starts with you controlling Ash Lambert, a platoon leader in the Ishtarian security forces, who discovers the corruption that plagues the nation and begins to suspect conspiracies at the highest levels of government. Ash attempts to bring this corruption to light, but all he accomplishes is attracting the attention of the conspirators themselves. Ash then sets out to foil their plans and restore order to the nation. I'll say no more on the game's story for fear of spoilers, but you see the many similarities between Vandal Hearts 1 and Suikoden 1. Vandal Hearts takes what you see in Suikoden and ramps it up to the next level. It shows you that war is brutal, it shows you the cost it has on people. It's not all sunshines and rainbows just because you defeated the bad guys. The people are still suffering as a result of a war that happened years ago. There are real, long-lasting effects to such brutal wars, and you see that suffering in real time as you travel across the nation and visit new towns. And then 2 years later, Konami released Vandal Hearts 2, and much like the changes and improvements between Suikoden 1 and 2, Vandal Hearts 2 took the first game's mature themes to a whole new level. To give a little backstory for Vandal Hearts 2, the game takes place sometime after the events of Vandal Hearts 1 in the nation of Natra on the Rognant continent. 10 years prior to the game taking place, King Zekras left the throne to his son Prince Julius, but his younger brother Prince Lagor raised an army and took the throne for himself. Years later, King Lagor would be assassinated by his wife Queen Agatha and her lover Cardinal Ladorak. Following his death, the young Prince Franz was declared the new king, and Ladorak was appointed the premier and would begin an oppressive reign and rule with an iron fist where he ruthlessly and mercilessly clamped down on all who opposed him. Vandal Hearts 2 begins with you controlling an orphan called Joshua as the game follows him from childhood to adulthood as you witness the nation get plunged into a civil war that splits the nation in two, with each side being backed by a foreign power. This game's story is intense right from the moment you start the game. The very first thing you see at the beginning of the game is a group of soldiers burning an entire town to the ground while butchering and violating, if you catch my meaning, the inhabitants. If you thought Luca Blight was terrifying and his scenes in Suikoden 2 were dark, what you'll witness in Vandal Hearts is a whole new level of messed up. Vandal Hearts is not only brutal and bloody, but the amount of political scheming, backstabbings and betrayals you'll witness in these games make it feel like you've been thrown into the world of Game of Thrones. You'll witness firsthand the dark realities of war that Suikoden shies away from showing. And the similarities between the two games don't end at their stories and themes. The soundtrack for Vandal Hearts 1 was largely composed by the two key composers of Suikoden 1, Miki Higashino and Hiroshi Tamawari. Following Vandal Hearts 1, Miki Higashino would compose the soundtrack for Suikoden 2, while Hiroshi Tamawari went on to compose the soundtrack for Vandal Hearts 2. If you're a fan of the Suikoden soundtracks, you'll love the soundtracks in Vandal Hearts. But despite all of the similarities between the two series, Vandal Hearts was unfortunately completely overshadowed by Suikoden and never reached the same levels of success. While Vandal Hearts 1 sold enough copies to spawn a sequel, Vandal Hearts 2 sold much worse than the first game and effectively ended the series. Until over a decade later in 2010 when along came the third and final entry in the series, Vandal Hearts Flames of Judgment, a $15 budget title that released on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 through Xbox Live Arcade and the PlayStation Network. Flames of Judgment is a prequel to Vandal Hearts 1, taking place around 1,000 years or so in the past on the northern continent of Sostagaria before the Asha dynasty even ruled. Prior to the game taking place, a 20-year war was fought between the neighbouring nations of Urdu and the Kingdom of Balustrad. During the final confrontation between both forces, in a moment of divine intervention, flames shot down from the sky, wiping out both armies and causing massive floods which destroyed much of the land, leading to plagues and famines decimating both nations for years to come. Way to go, God, you sat back and watched for 20 years while these two nations were killing each other by the thousands. You waited until the final battle that would have ended the war once and for all before intervening and annihilating both armies by raining fiery death from above, which caused untold numbers of deaths and suffering among the civilian population of both nations for many years to come. Swell job you did there, your intervention killed more people and caused more suffering than the war itself did. Anyway, the game begins years later as you take control of an orphan called Tobias. After a bandit attack on his village, Tobias and a few other orphans sign up with the Balustrade army. But they quickly discover that the bandit attacks were orchestrated by a general who had survived the 20-year war and is attempting to reignite the old conflict between the nations by pinning the bandit attack on Urdu. On paper, it's all there and it ticks all of the Vandal Hearts boxes, but the story doesn't feel as mature as the previous games, and that's largely due to the ugly cartoony art style which drags the whole experience down. The beautifully crafted character sprites of the first two games were replaced by low-budget cartoon rejects, and the ridiculous caricatures in the cutscenes made it very difficult to take moments seriously. The art direction was an absolutely bizarre decision considering the mature themes of the game, and it ruined the whole experience for many people. Flames of Judgment can be happily left in whatever grave it's buried in, but Vandal Hearts 1 and 2 are masterpieces that never received the love they deserved. I don't want to call Vandal Hearts a hidden gem, as after all these years and thousands of videos by many content creators, I don't think there is such a thing as a hidden gem anymore. But it's a series that definitely flew under the radar for many people, and it's one that deserves just as much love as Suikoden. And now with Konami's resurgence in the gaming world, is there hope that Vandal Hearts might also see a revival with its own remaster or collection? I hope so, and you should too, as any fan of Suikoden will love Vandal Hearts. If you have played Vandal Hearts before, let everyone know in the comments how great this series is and why they should play it. And if you haven't played Vandal Hearts before, what are you waiting for? Start petitioning Konami to release a collection or remaster. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll catch you on the next one.